So it's finally been announced. David Haye is going to fight Tony Bellew in London, England, at the O2 Arena for on the 17th of December 2017. So they're going to have the rematch. Obviously, on Sky Sports box office. My thoughts on this fight. I think as you can see on the poster, you can see it's a joint promotion between obviously Matchroom and Haymaker Ringstar. Which is a joint venture, obviously involving David Haye with Richard Schaefer. So obviously, my opinion on this matchup, like in terms of like the build up of the fight, how the fight has come about, you can obviously see with Tony Bellew, for some reason, I don't understand how he could not materialize a matchup with any of the other heavyweights in the sport that he was clamoring to fight after his victory over David Haye. So I remember him coming out and saying that he wanted to get into the ring with Wilder, he wanted to fight with Joseph Parker, he wanted to fight all these top heavyweights that unfortunately he just could not actually for some reason them fights could not get over the negotiation line, and then fights cannot become a reality. The irony of the situation is Eddie Hearn obviously said that that before this fight was actually announced, a month or two before, I think about 3-4 months before, he actually did say that there's no way that this fight would actually happen because both parties just can't come to an agreement when it comes to this to the small details when it comes to this fight. So I believe Tony Bellew did actually say that the only way that the fight with David Haye could happen is if in terms of the negotiations for that particular fight, it has to be flipped in the opposite direction. So obviously, when Tony Bellew first fought David Haye, David Haye was the A side in that fight. He probably got the lion's share of the purse. Actually, as you can see on the poster, the first poster. Obviously, I don't have it up, but predominantly the first name that was actually on the poster was Haye versus Bellew. It was not Bellew versus Haye like this particular poster. Obviously the everything was on side with David Haye with his requirements and what he wanted in terms of that particular fight. So obviously he said the only way Bellew actually said the only way this fight could happen is if everything was switched in the opposite direction, with everything being favourably in split for a Tony Bellew. So I'm assuming he's going to make the most money from this fight in terms of the split, in terms of pay-per-view revenue. Obviously David Haye, he probably had to bite the bullet and take the lower payout for this particular matchup in terms of his purse. Obviously it's not going to be 100% a hometown advantage for Tony Bellew. He's going to be fighting in the O2 Arena. So obviously this fight, in my opinion, the first fight I wasn't really excited about because I thought David Haye would just knock him out. To put it bluntly, I'm actually surprised. By how Tony Bellew was able to avoid David Haye's power. He did get hit a few times, but he always rolled with the shots and he never allowed David Haye to actually hit him cleanly. Now, a lot of people will say, obviously, the main reason for that is because of David Haye's injuries, but you got to give Tony Bellew credit for that because he was actually able to negate the advantages that David Haye obviously had over him with the power, obviously the more speed, obviously the explosiveness, the awkwardness with his style. Tony Bellew was able to actually negate all of that, and you can't say the same thing about the previous opponents that David Haye fought on his comeback trail. Obviously Mark Demori and Arnold Gurgel was not on that level, on the same level as Tony Bellew, but the fact remains, if a lesser opponent was in the ring with David Haye that night, I don't believe they would have had the level of success that Tony Bellew had. It's obvious that Tony Bellew's one of them fighters, like he's the type of fighter that he's not really outside of the ring he is, but inside of the ring he's not very flamboyant. He doesn't have like amazing speed, amazing power. He doesn't have amazing athleticism. He's pretty awkward. However, there's a few nuances to his game that's very subtle. Like he can make the fight difficult for opponents. He knows how to survive. He knows how to hold the center of the ring. He does little technical nuances that can make it difficult for a fighter to win. And obviously he did win the WBC Cruiserweight Championship, so he does have talent, and he's taken the hard road to get to where he's at today. He's fought the likes of Adonis Stevenson. Obviously, with the more that Tony Bellew accomplishes in his career, it makes the Stevenson victory in regards to Stevenson's resume look even better for Stevenson. But it must be said, as I can see, there's been a few changes made in David Haye's preparation for this particular fight. He's obviously hired a new coach. He said in a recent interview that he's going back to basics. So he's probably going to take this fight very seriously, because this is the last chance for him. Obviously, Tony Bellew did actually say a few times that he does want to retire from the sport, and it could be likely that he does retire after this fight, because he's probably going to make a lot of money. He made enough money to secure his family's future with the first David Haye fight, and he did actually thank David Haye for that. But with this fight, with him getting the more favourable split, it could be likely that after this fight, if he can get a victory, or even if he doesn't get a victory, he could actually sail off to the sunset, and actually this could be his last fight. Obviously, he did say about his ambitions to actually fight a heavyweight for the heavyweight championship, but obviously they tried to make them fights happen, and it just didn't happen. It just didn't materialize, so it just wasn't meant to be. But it could be said, for both of these opponents, I think this is like a last chance saloon for both of them, in the sense when it comes to negotiations, they probably were looking for other options, and this was the last option available for them to actually make decent money in the sport, and also make a good payday, but also like have a fight that the public is generally care about. David Haye, apart from this Tony Bellew fight, if any other heavyweight in the world like Wilder, Joseph Parker, or Anthony Joshua were to fight him, it would not have generated as much hype, because obviously it can't be stated more concisely that the fact is that if they would have won that fight, a lot of people would have said David Haye was old, David Haye had an injury, David Haye got beaten by Tony Bellew. So the only fight that really makes sense in this perspective is for Tony Bellew to fight David Haye, because obviously Bellew could not secure a fight against another top flight heavyweight, and obviously David Haye, with his injuries, if he was to get in the ring with Anthony Joshua or any other top heavyweight, I think he would just get destroyed. This is the only fight that he can legitimately win, and this is the only fight that I think he has a chance of winning, if he gets the tactics right. So if he was to win this fight, you could potentially have a trilogy here. You could potentially have a third fight between Bellew and Haye, and although it's not what I would say is the most exciting fight, I'm still torn. I'm still a little bit intrigued to see what happens in this fight. So if I want to see if David Haye's rehab program has been successful in rehabilitating his actual tendon, and obviously the injury that he's had, if he can actually come back from this and still win. One thing must be said, right? Despite the fact that David Haye did injure his for one thing, and he can use that as an excuse to say why he's lost to Bellew. He didn't look the same in that fight. His timing was off. His rhythm was off. His speed just wasn't there. He looked like a shot fighter. He looked like a fighter that has just gone out of his prime, that has just literally grown old overnight. If he can just turn back the time one more time and just beat Bellew, I think David Haye in his mind knows that he's if he's stubborn enough to believe that he can step in with the top heavyweights and somehow pull it off and win a heavyweight title again, I really don't see it happening. But I think he knows if he can finally, this is his last chance of winning this fight. So the result of this fight is going to be all dependent upon which David Haye shows up. So if the David Haye that shows up, even without, a lot of people are saying if he didn't have the injury, he would have won the fight. I think that's a bit disingenuous. Even before the injury struck, you can see that David Haye's timing was off, and obviously Bellew did injure his hand in the fight. So you could argue like even though he couldn't knock out David Haye, the fact that his corner threw in the towel, it was a humiliating defeat, and I think he wants to reverse that last memory of himself. In some sense, he did get redemption from this fight because he didn't make excuses and try to blame his leg like he did in the Klitschko fight with his toe. But in his mind, I think he wants to get one more victory. He wants to lay this demon to rest before he finally calls it a day. So this is an intriguing fight, but this is all dependent on David Haye. If David Haye can somehow pull off, it seems impossible, but somehow pull it out the bag and somehow fight almost a perfect fight and not just rely overly on his athleticism, but be a bit more technical and try to beat Tony Bellew with the physical advantages that he has, because he is the bigger man, then he can somehow pull this off. But if David Haye is totally shot, if his injury rehabilitation was not successful, then I feel like Bellew is just gonna potentially destroy him. But it must be said, this may be a good time for both fighters to actually bow out of the sport, because despite a Tony Bellew's victory over David Haye, and a limited David Haye, must be said with that, with the injury and the fatigue and his natural reflexes being dulled, I don't think he has a future in the heavyweight division, fighting the likes of Anthony Joshua, Deontay Wilder, or Joseph Parker. And I don't feel like all the slew of contenders coming up, like Dylan White, I don't think he has that many fights left in him. And obviously David Haye, with him being shot, and his injuries and his body plaguing him, he doesn't have that many fights left in him as well. So you can look at this fight as a retirement fight. They're both trying to cash out before they finally call it a day. And I'm kind of happy to see that Tony Bellew is finally getting the paycheck and the recognition that he deserves. He's obviously gone through loads of tough fights in his career. He's done a lot of things his own way, but he's struggled a lot with being one of them fighters that the British public in general just didn't appreciate until this fight with David Haye and him actually beating David Haye. But I'm actually intrigued. To put a prediction on this fight, I slightly lean towards Tony Bellew pulling it off, because David Haye did look so poor in his last fight against Tony Bellew. So yeah, I'm leaning towards Bellew to pull this off again, because he's the slightly fresher fighter. Obviously he's got more confidence now after he's beaten David Haye, but I still think David Haye is gonna swing for the fences. He's gonna come into this fight totally focused and ready to put it all on the line, because he knows it's a last chance saloon, this fight for him. So yeah, that's my opinion on this fight. Tell me what you lot think below. Do you think David Haye has one great performance in him and he can finally pull it off and beat Bellew, or do you think Bellew is just gonna like he said, it's just gonna be repeat, it's not gonna be revenge, he's gonna somehow pull it off? Or do you think Tony Bellew somehow won the lottery the last time with David Haye's leg being screwed? Maybe do you think that he can win the lottery again, like David Haye said? Tell me all your thoughts below, and obviously just subscribe to this channel if you're new around here, and we'll keep you posted. I'm gonna post more videos on a daily basis, hopefully, and I can finally see if we'll finally see if who will win this fight between both of them. So peace out. See you next time for my next video. Bye.